Hello, dear ones. I am making you this video the morning after I received a message from my synagogue. And I want to preface this by saying as a therapist, I don't share much personally, so this is an experiment to make this video and share this with you. You'll see why I feel compelled. I received a message from my synagogue warning us that Hamas in the next 1 to 2 hours was going to begin publishing footage on social media of torture and violence. I want to tell you, whether you are in a similar situation to me, whether you are Palestinian or Ukrainian or in any war situation adjacent or simply aware of terrible images out there. I made this video for you and for me to share with you the touchstones that give me life. First piece of information to know. Terror is the goal in this situation and in many others. So the goal right now is for the people who are committing the violence to make the other side so psychologically terrorized that they collapse, that they use their own strength to self-destruct, that they conclude, and in this case they would be me and other people who would be receiving these violent recordings, that they conclude that there is no option but self-destruction. So if we know that that is the goal, psychological terror, then we can see what's happening under the surface and ourselves be strategic and be agents in how we respond. And I want to share with you what I find useful as a response. You know, sometimes those who wish us ill, they can try to exploit what is wonderful about us. And we could say in IFS, they exploit our C qualities, the qualities of self, compassion, curiosity. And I'm going to speak for myself that I feel a moral obligation to witness. And so if I were to receive a message, I would feel, part of me would feel an obligation to the victims to witness. Here's what I want to say in response to that, if you're feeling that. Number one, you don't have to make a decision right now. You can still witness later. In fact, you have your whole lifetime to witness if you feel that's really what's right. Secondly, let's look at the dangers in witnessing. Vicarious trauma is a real phenomenon. So there's a great risk. And the very noble calling to witness in this moment probably does not outweigh that risk, or at least you can evaluate that. Say for me that, you know, the conclusion is that witnessing as an act of moral obligation for me right now is not heavier and weightier than the risk of becoming incapacitated due to vicarious trauma. Secondly, I want to say that, and I'm saying this from myself, observing my own inner dialogue, my wonderful crusading parts who are so principled. And, you know, if you're watching this, I'm guessing you have a part like that too. There can be a little grandiosity, and it's okay to have that. As humans, we have that tendency. It's just human. There can be a little grandiosity when we are trying to do something noble and good. The grandiosity can be, I'm the only one who can do this. So for me, I questioned myself when I learned about these horrific images. And I questioned, am I feeling like I have to be the one who witnesses? If you notice that you're the only one, for me it was a very unconscious belief that I only knew was there because I knew to specifically ask and look for it. If we feel we're the only one who can fix or help in a situation of massive trauma and terror like this, then we are setting ourselves up to get burned out. And I say that, I learned that from a wonderful professor of mine when I did a course in peace building. And this professor had been in Rwanda during the reconciliation process. And he, in talking about how he was able to sustain his work, he said, I noticed that the people who thought they were the only ones who could help burned out. He said there is always someone else who can help. So that's the second thing to keep in mind. If there's something unconscious in you that's saying it must be you who witnesses, just know that that's false, and that leads us to the path of burnout. And third, I want to surface the reality that the bad is real and the good is real too. They don't cancel each other out. It's not possible to cancel out the bad. It's also not possible to cancel out the good. Don't get trapped in the seductive invitation that I know for much of my life I dealt with, to try and solve why the bad is there and try and find answers. Of course, on the geopolitical stage, there are answers in that way, but I'm talking about on the deep moral level. There is nothing that makes the awful okay. There's no understanding or explanation. And if we get into that cycle of trying to understand why, or trying to conclude, well, which is it? Is the world bad or good? It's a trick question. There's no answer. So you can decline that invitation and hold the obligation to witness fiercely the good. We seem to be wired as humans to consciously really notice the bad. Again, the bad is real, it's there. But there is so much good, and we need to make a conscious effort to hold that, to be aware of the good. So in terms of witnessing, let's not be one-sided. Let's remember that the good is just as real, and we need to make an extra effort. We do need to make an extra effort to witness that. So if we're talking about obligation to witness, don't forget about the good. I mentioned our positive qualities being exploited and manipulated towards something destructive. And there's that noble, perhaps it's compassion, perhaps it's courage, dedication to witnessing that I mentioned. And I'm also going to tell you and admit that for me, my curiosity, which is a quality of self, my curiosity also poked up its head. And I will admit that I thought, I'm actually curious about these images, these terrible images that, might be shared. For me, this is a surprise. I don't watch violent TV shows or movies. I don't like to hear about violence. And that's pretty straightforward for me. So to have a curiosity about violence is unusual. This is a morbid curiosity, and I want to name it and make space for it. It's here. We can, if you have that, redirect it towards curiosity about the good. Mr. Rogers is an incredible television pioneer who's now dead. He created a children's television programming called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers was an amazing man. He would talk about something that is a touchstone for me, that I've shared with my son. And that is what his mother taught him, which is, she said, when there's a disaster, look for the helpers, because there are always helpers. Those who come after a disaster because they care to help. And that is where I am directing my curiosity, my natural curiosity, towards where are the helpers? Where are those who have courage? Where are those who have compassion? There's a wonderful website you might know called the Good News Network. I was lucky to discover this. Maybe I might have even been in high school. It was such a small website back then. I think we had dial-up internet. And this website has been created to show exclusively the good news that's going on in the world. So there we go, bringing the attention and the witnessing to the good consciously. I would love there to be a good news network for every war, every, horrible situation where we can get one-sided and only see the bad. I would love there to be a service like that. So if you want to create one or you know how, I would definitely watch it. But I'm using this as an example to give your curiosity, if you have that, a direction in which to flow. Because if we simply try to dam it up and say, no, don't be curious, don't be curious, don't be curious, that's not going to work for very long. We need to give that curiosity a healthy direction in which it can flow. And finally, I want to give you a principle. And that principle is that when we have a loss, when we have grief, we must create something of commensurate value to that grief. If you're feeling helpless and powerless, whether you're involved in this conflict peripherally, directly, or not with this, but with anything else that's negative, there is something you can do, even if it may not be a traditional action that directly relates or improves things in an obvious way. You can take action. This is important because when we feel powerless, we start to withdraw, we start to collapse, we start to get smaller, we start to not be connected to our vitality and to life. So here's what you can do. An example is, there is a Christian tradition in America. When someone dies, in some Christian denominations, they will hold what they call a celebration of life. And that is a way to celebrate, to be creative in a commensurate way to the loss. I remember being privileged to attend a memorial service like this, where the woman who had died, she had a fascinating life, which included, back when there was black and white photography only, having some boudoir pictures taken, and she had directed what could happen at the celebration of life. And so these were spread out. There were photos and newspaper articles and all that kind of thing. After the service, the attendees could look at this and just be amazed at what a life. We can do that with the horror. So, when we're faced with the existential question of what can I do? Just know that if you are doing something creative, you are not contributing to destruction. And very likely, you are contributing to the positive. That's why I made this video, because for me, this is an act of creation, of creativity. And engaging in creativity, whether it's the traditional painting, which many people think of that when they hear the word creativity, whether it's creating a video to share with the public, whether it's, I don't know what it would be for you. When we engage with creativity, we make space for the transcendent, for the divine, for self-energy, for that which transforms. We are holding that space while we are doing the creative thing. It's not something that is us, that we ourselves are doing something amazing. It's that we're setting the stage and we're engaging with that so that the creative can come out. This is why my deepest love is art therapy, because it is engaging in creativity that heals. And so if you want to take action and there's something creative that you want to do it. We'll all be doing it here together in this stream of creativity. Commensurate with the loss, which is real, acknowledging that the bad is real, and so is the good, witnessing fiercely the good. Thank you for watching. Thank you for allowing me to be creative and share this with you. That's all for now.